Hello, 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 and welcome in to Bear With Us on the Bear Claw Media podcast feed. I am Chris Bolin, joined as always by Ben Schleiger. Ben, buddy, how you doing?
A little rough this week. I apologize to the listeners for any gravelly audio from me. The new COVID has hit me hard. Boys, batten down the hatches. It is a rough one. Apparently, also rougher on guys. So I don't know if that's like Mother Nature just being like equality. Yeah, little rough. So I apologize for the audio this week, but happy and excited to continue our position breakdown. That should coast us right into season preview in August. So yeah, doing running backs for this episode, and I'm a sucker. This is one of my favorites, being a former running back linebacker, just high school ball, but man, love running backs, and I think we got a good crop this year.
Yeah, Ben, I don't think anybody would ever accuse us of over-planning typically, but I think we did kind of nail the timing and the rollout on these kind of little snippets that will take us into spring or into fall camp. But you're right, running backs today. We saw from the spring game, it seems like there's a four. Like it seems like there's a fairly defined top four. Correct me if you saw it differently. But that looked like Rocco Traore, Matthias Price, Justin Gwynn, and Brandon Johnson, the Arizona transfer. What did you kind of see from each of those guys? In albeit some, limited carries. There's only, especially running backs in spring, they can only really shine through once we go full contact.
Right. Yeah, and especially when it's friendly fire, it's like, ooh, that was like fantastic, but like, are we playing 100%? Are we going like is this 80%? Should we be even more excited about that guy just demolishing people? So, a little bit of like, hey, not sure what we're gonna get, but from the hard practice that we saw, pretty good stuff. Running back shined pretty aggressively. Excuse me. So I'll just run down the 7 that we have. Like you said, 4 saw sustained action, and we have one other one that has been on the roster. As far as I know, I think both Sean Kidd and Jordan Neeson, again, pronunciations, sorry guys, but I believe those two are new to us, right? The Mesa and Adams kid.
From all accounts, yes. I do not remember either of these names last year. And Jordan Neeson, now looking at his photo, it says he's from Adams, but that kid doesn't look more than about 40 days removed from high school graduation.
I was like, I feel bad. This kid says he's from Wellington. Shout out also Sean Kidd from Fort Collins. Again, shout out to both. Somehow I miss those ones, but I'm sure Coach V had an eye on them. So maybe we catch up with him and be like, hey, refresh our memory on these guys. But on the roster, as far as we know, we have Rocco Traore coming over from the secondaries into the running back field, which he originally played in high school. Didn't know that, so shout out Coach Lamb for educating us up at practice. He's 6 foot 196. He's one of the Fountain Fort Carson guys. Matthias Price, also from Southern Colorado, 6'2", 215. Absolutely an action figure of a guy.
I'm not sure if Rocco's from Washington. I'm not sure if that was just a phrasing part, but
Rocco is Washington. I got my chicken scratch all jumbled here. Price is definitely a Fountain Fort Caution guy. He came down with McClarity and whatnot. Justin Gwynn, 5'10", 195. Had some time at Fresno State, so that's kind of exciting. Jaden Thomas, local guy from Windsor, 5'7", 180, New Mexico State. We know he has some off-the-field stuff, so we'll see how that factors into his playing time. Brandon Johnson, new arrival to us, 5'9", 185, was at Arizona previously. Not sure what his playing time was, but it's an absolute shame that they didn't use him better because he's crazy good. I think we were both like, wait, that's got to be somebody else. And we're like, no, there's this random kid that came from Arizona, and he's just lighting up the field. Because you were like, that's got to be Price. Excuse me. And no, Price was just in on the other rep, and he had a different number. So we got 2 bruisers. Admittedly, Johnson is listed smaller than Price, but like with pads on, they look equally intimidating. Sean Kidd, I'd love to see what this kid looks like after Coach Hill gets his hands on him. 5'9", 210 from Colorado Mesa. Again, I don't know. I'm a sucker. I was a fullback. I feel like, yeah, just like stocky, gritty kid from locally. Like, let's get him some fullback time, coach. Like, Come on. We can work that in, right? And then Jordan Nyson, 5'9", 180 from Adams State, originally from Wellington. Shout out locally because I'm over here in Alt Europe there in Pierce. So always fun with one of the local farm kids that get a call up to D1. So we got some interesting kids in the running back room for sure. But I think what we saw from practice, I would say probably leaning towards Price. Rocco got a lot of playing time, and Brandon Johnson got a lot of playing time. But if I'm wrong, I don't know. I don't think so, but looks like coach is leaning towards Price, especially with him getting some reps late in the season last season.
See, I kind of saw it the other way. It was kind of 1A, 1B, I would say. It felt to me like Rocco was the 1A, but I think the difference is so minuscule at this point, and who knows come fall camp exactly what's going to happen. Surely, like, you hate to see it, but surely one of them will get dinged up at some point, and then I think it'll eventually shake itself out the way hopefully it needs to. I think Price is my favorite, which we may agree on here, because he's bigger than I remember, and he may just be bigger than he was at the last time we kind of saw him last year. But he does seem more that every down type of back that can, get 2 or 3 yards up the middle, even if there's not too much there, where Rocco does seem kind of like the quicker, more shifty, not specialty back, but a more kind of change of pace guy, even though that's not necessarily how they were used. But again, it's so tough come spring when you're just trying to see what everybody can kind of bring to the table, especially a guy like Rocco who switched positions.
Right. Yeah, and this is supposedly like Rocco's like true normal, so I think he looked pretty comfortable in the spring. Obviously there was, some timing stuff of where he could have followed blockers just a little bit easier or stuff like that, but I think that's just all just acclimating to coming back onto the right side of the ball per se for him. I think it's really that starting three. Gwyn did get some time. I think Gwyn will probably get some time returning kicks as well. So we'll see what happens there. I think it's I think the returning kicks part was purely just let's have somebody different catch the kick every time. I would say Gwyn is a likely candidate to be back there since he had some time returning quick kicks last year, but honestly, like spring's so hard to tell. Um, I mean, it's possible Rocco was getting extra playing time just to get him extra acclimated to it. So maybe we don't even know what the depth chart's really going to be. It could be even Johnson, Price, Rocco. I don't think so. I think Price is going to get the nod, but I would say that's your starting three that they're gonna rotate with the most. Not anything against Gwyn, and I said this in a previous episode. I think Gwyn saying he's a running back is a little offensive. I think he's more of a slot, and not even a slot receiver, slot running back. I think he's equally talented at both, and he'll be more of a utility player. So, not trying to be disrespectful by leaving him out of that starting conversation. I just think he's so useful and has such good hands that he can kind of transition to whatever the play calls for.
That's a good point, because we'll get there, I guess, next week with the wide receiver episode, but feels like a lot up in the air at wide receiver after the top two, especially. There's some depth behind that, but really kind of who may be the third option in the air. It wouldn't be that kind of out of left field if it was one of these running backs, and I think Gwyn is a good candidate for that. Maybe it was like a small sample size and I just got a little bit too caught on that, but I thought Gwyn looked really good in the spring game. He was kind of a guy that he's on my radar, but wasn't really, like, I know who he was, but I wasn't expecting him to kind of blow me away. And he looked good in that spring game. I guess he was also a secondary convert to running back. So we seem to. I think Lamb may have a type when it comes to who he wants in the backfield.
He likes those utility players for sure. Gwyn, I think as good as he looked when he came over, of course, he Fresno State, like obviously like quality player to be able to get an offer like that anyways. But I think just on top of that, that Gwynn he's crisped up from last year. I think he was a little bit finer with his motion, a little bit finer with his cuts. So I think he really has developed. And again, I don't know where he necessarily falls in, but I think he should get used. It's just being that special. It's like it almost like it's almost like a Taysom Hill type situation. It's like there might be specific plays just for him or specific routes just for him, but I don't know that he necessarily climbs up the starting lineup just because of.
That's a good point. Like 100%. I'm also interested in Brandon Johnson because he got some run, but he's still very much an unknown, at least in my eyes. So I think he could be, I don't want to say a dark horse when you're an Arizona transfer, but if 3 weeks in he was getting most of the carries and he was like by far the best back, I wouldn't be surprised. If that's not the case, I'm also not going to be too shocked. Sean Kidd does intrigue me. I have no clue how he'll factor into the plans, but I mean, last year, 6, 7, maybe even 8 running backs got some runs. He's the type of guy where if I was playing Madden and I saw 5'9", 210, 215, like out of a college running back, I'm taking him in the 6th round. Just cause let me give him the ball like 25, 30 times a game and it just kind of right up the middle. But which seems to fit with how the offense looked in the spring game. They feel kind of run heavy. Feels like they can throw the ball better than they have in years past, but also still a run focused team, kind of that punch you in the mouth type of hand the ball off offense. So it's always good to have options, but we saw last year, like when you have too many options, you kind of have none. And that's why none of the top 5 running backs are back this year. Granted, some graduated, not all black and white like that, but thought we had a deep running back room last year, and basically all of them are gone now.
Well, Price and Gwynn I guess Price, Gwynn, and Thomas are holdovers, with mostly Price and Gwynn getting play from last year. But yeah, I think it's hard, especially when we were told, it's going to be based off of average, and then 100% wasn't. I think that's hard to not be upset about, but that's a separate conversation that we've already beat like a dead horse. But just like you're saying, Colorado Mesa kid, interesting for sure. Jordan Neeson. Also, shout out, he's got a photo before Brandon Johnson, and Brandon Johnson's getting like starting type reps in spring practice. Shout out Jordan for being on top of it. Brandon, come on, dude. We need a picture, dude. We need to be able to pick you out of the crowd. I think Johnson kind of looks like Price 2.0. Not as big, with listed sizes and whatnot, but tough running, good, but just downhill, follow your blockers, hit the gap type guy. I think it's kind of undefined what Price and Johnson can do in the catching game, because there wasn't a lot of scripted running back passes to any of the starting reps per se. I think we only really got to see Gwynn shine with that in spring. I don't know that the other guys necessarily. I think Rocco got some like swing passes or whatnot thrown to him, but I think that's kind of the one undefined. Is not sure if that factors in, if like maybe there's tough backs and then there's receiving backs. So not quite sure. Not saying that Price or Johnson can't catch. I'm just saying, at least for scripted stuff in the spring, we didn't see much of that.
Also maybe 15 minutes into this podcast isn't the time I should have noticed this, but Cameron Randall Taylor's also not listed on the roster. And he didn't get like a ton of play last year, but it felt like they were trying to carve out a role for him with a lot of like end around, not a lot, but couple of game, or at least it was in the mix where he would get if you're Googling it, good luck, Ben. I couldn't find anything, but yeah, I don't even like that one's just interesting because he doesn't seem like there's no portal announcement, nothing like that, but he's just not on the roster. And he always struck me as a guy who they had big plans for, like in the future, and maybe the future's here now and those plans weren't as big as he liked. So it could be something like that. That was also a weird one where he felt like, especially in the way Lamb recruits, like a pretty highly touted recruit. I know he had several FBS offers. So I don't want to speculate too hard, but maybe there was a reason he ended up at UNC and that kind of continued on, and that's why he's no longer here. But that one just kind of struck me as interesting because especially we were talking 7 running backs it almost feels a little light. You don't want to use 7, but I feel like you want to have maybe a couple more just for when 2 or 3 are inevitably dinged up by week 3 or 4. So that's just a little depth note there. But are you finding anything in your frantic searching?
Yeah, I'm trying to sleuth. You're right. He is listed on the 24. He is not listed on the 25. Obviously, the 25 still has some updating to be done because we know, and if you know ball, Rocco has switched from secondary to running back, but that's not updated on the roster just yet. So I am not seeing anything on Google or Twitter right off the bat. Everything's older than what we know. So I don't know. That is a bummer. You know what's another dang it, and I'm gonna mess up his name. You know which one is another bummer that we had, and he transferred out. Gene Sledge Jr., Big Sky Freshman of the Year. Like, God, what was that 3 to 5 years ago? Do you remember Gene?
I very, very vaguely, I don't think I did until you just brought his name up, though. It's one of
And
those where I don't think I had thought about it in so long.
he was definitely like a bruiser back for sure. Of course, he went to Kennesaw State, got used very limited, and then went to JUCO. But he's still in the portal, so I'm not saying we need him, but somebody needs him for sure.
I think that technically, he's in the portal, but he left prior to Lamb getting here. So it wouldn't be bringing a guy back out of the portal. So I think if we're working on technicalities, I think we're all clear.
Right. Yeah. Again, not much of his current stuff to be like, oh yeah, yeah, great. Also, he's probably like 24, 25 at this point.
Got that grown man strength. Them
Right.
forearms are probably just huge
Yeah.
for no good reason.
If you remember, he was like all about just big stiff arms, big truck sticks. Also, shout out UNC Athletics for the brief Twitter video that we're using here.
I love that this is the technology that Bear Claw Media has grown to. We are in about 2007 when it comes to streaming video on this podcast. But shout out to that camera that you bought because I can see that surprisingly well for like a video of a video.
Honestly, that's just it's an all-in-one. So shout out HP, sponsor it. But yeah, like just absolute dog. Like I remember I was so sad when he left because he was a very much a bruiser back, but that's getting away from who we have currently. We're thankful for who we have, and I don't know, like running backs. Like I think Castelli is gonna need a lean on him. Like don't be afraid to use your running back. Don't be afraid to, if you're running the option, don't be afraid to use your options.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting. The offense hopefully will kind of evolve throughout the season, but I am curious to see what like game plan 1 is. Like are they trying to make this Castelli's team? Not make this Castelli's team, but is that like kind of the route that they see this team going, or are they going to be let's use Castelli when needed, focus on the run. That also gets you into some weird spots because if you're only throwing on obvious passing downs, we saw how well that went a couple times last season. But I kind of am inclined to lean towards the latter. I think I think this team will be pretty run heavy, and I think that'll be a good mix of the backs, some designed Castelli stuff, some undesigned Castelli stuff, and just a little bit of everything there. So I do think that when we look up at the end of next season, hopefully the numbers are just generally higher than they were. When we look up at the end of this season, hopefully they're higher than they were when we looked last season. But I do think will be more drawn to that rushing yard stat again.
Yeah, and honestly, I think we're um, not trying to jump ahead to another position, but just looking at the size of our own linemen, like man, that's got me excited. One guy. There's only one guy that's listed below 300, and he's 298. So having a more experienced, more cohesive um, offensive line. Also, I don't know if Betchart's coming back. He's listed as a graduate student, but that would be sick because I know he had some injury stuff this past year. But 6'6", 315, like just a ton of big guys. We love Lincoln. He's one of those Fountain Port Carson guys that we gushed about. 6'5", 339. Unit. Fucking unit. Somebody we should ask Coach about because I don't know. It's hard to. O-line was such a shuffle last year. You know, people in, people out, people in. It's always a very fluid position, but injuries and just assignments alone, it was a lot to keep up with. Andre Strickland, kid from Arvada, played at Golden, 6'5", 320. Like, he came in same time as Lincoln. Like, if all these guys are a little bit more, in tune with each other, Jack Bacon, 6'6", 305, like, we could theoretically have a good running team, and like and Peter doesn't have to take all the pressure. Like I think it'd be pretty awesome to just like say that our O line could be a shining example if everything goes right. Of course, the Big Sky has some pretty brutal pass rushers, but I don't know, this size, like maybe Lamb's recruiting is finally coming to fruition at least in the size department.
Yeah, I think his like development, if anything, is coming to fruition. Like I think we're seeing it kind of in all the positions, and whether or not it translates to like scheme and on the field production, I'm a little more leery. But I think it's almost unquestionable that these guys look like night and day difference from 2 years ago.
We
But
look like a D1 football team. Now we just got to play like one.
Bet's chart, by all accounts, is coming back. I'm pretty sure he was the first guest that they had on, the first player guest that they had on Football 52. So, and it's nice to have a few guys on the line that we've like been seeing their name for a couple years now. Like he's one, Levi Johnson, Jack Zybel, might not be Jack, but there's a handful of names that we're actually familiar with, which I think can only bode well, especially at that type of position. But I guess that you're right. That is for a couple episodes down the line. So anything else on running backs that you got to get off your chest before we get out of here?
No, I'm excited about all of it. And again, no disrespect to Jaden Thomas. We just know there's some off the field stuff to clear up first. But yeah, I think overall about the running backs, like very exciting crop. Hopefully the local kids get used. Like love to learn more about the Mesa and Adams State kids. So I think it's exciting. I mean, if we can be a drop down place for CSU and a call up place for some of the RMAC schools, that's not a bad place to be.
Honestly, not at all. And I feel like it kind of fits right in that sweet spot of UNC and what, especially the call up from RMAC schools. Those are a lot of Colorado kids, and I think that kind of just goes right along with what Lamb's been trying to do. But as always, if you like what we're doing, please, please, please like, comment, subscribe. Tell your mom to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't like what we're doing, Ben's DMs are always open. That's at Bear Claw Media. Tweets by Ben, capital, all caps Schleiger.
There you go. It's in the
But
bio. You can't miss it, people. Don't shoot Chris, shoot me.
have a good one.